Welcome to Toronto TV. Today we have a guest, Anita Li. She starts a new media in Toronto. So we would like to see how she do and what's her objective. My co-host is Linda Zhang. Hello, Anita. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Joseph. Hi, Linda. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Hi, Anita. Can you tell us more about yourself? All right. So
Yeah, sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is Anita Li. Like Joseph said, I am a longtime journalist. I'm also a media consultant, but most of all, I'm a news entrepreneur who founded a hyperlocal independent news outlet called The Green Line. And it's all about investigating the way we live to help young and other underserved Torontonians survive and thrive in a rapidly changing city. So basically, it's a digital publication that serves young people and other people who are underserved in the city by existing media. And we try to help people navigate life in the city through our coverage.
a little bit more background about you study journalism, where you're born, or are you an immigrant?
Yeah, sure. So I am somebody who started working in journalism when I was 14 years old. I'm 35 now. Let me actually rephrase that. So I started in journalism when I was 14 years old, and I'm 35 years old now. So I've been in the industry for over 20 years. And so my background really spans like a lot of Canadian media and American media. So I started off freelancing, writing little articles for like $25 each when I was 14 years old. My very first co-op experience was actually at CTV Toronto in Scarborough, where I'm from originally. And then later on, I started doing internships at the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, CBC, CTV. I've been in many different roles. I've been an on-air reporter, behind the scenes reporter, like for a newspaper. I've been an editor. I've done audience engagement. I've been on the business side of journalism. So that's kind of like the initial part of my career. And then the second half of my career, I worked largely in American media. So I actually covered the 2016 election that elected former President Donald Trump. And I also I worked in New York City for a couple of years as news director at this place called Complex Media before coming back home. And then I started focusing more on community focused and community driven journalism. And that's why I launched my own publication. There's a couple other things that I did in between them, but that's like the overall summary.
Yes. So you started working for the media. Now you're the media owner. Any difference?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of difference. Like I mentioned, it was a long kind of trajectory where I kind of worked up through the Canadian media pipeline. I started taking on leadership roles at American media. I came back home and continued working in leadership roles in Canadian media. But at some point I realized if I wanted to make a difference, and wanted to kind of create the kind of journalism I wanted on my terms, which was like community driven, it combats stereotypes, it's more inclusive. And more bottom up rather than top down in its approach, I knew I had to start my own company. So I have a lot more autonomy, but it's also a lot more stress because obviously I manage a team and I also am responsible for the revenue as well. So the business side of the journalism. So it's quite different in that sense, but I also just I'm so much happier than I've ever been before in my career because I get to call the shots, ultimately.
And now you have any question?
Yes, I will be more focused on the business side of, in the area. So in terms of the business, where do you see, because you're now entrepreneur, so where do you see this coming from? From the email that I understand is you are still investing in this business, right? Do you see when it's going to be profit or it's going to, the business can self-sustain by itself? Or how do you see the long-term goal of this business?
Yeah, so I just launched it in April 2022. So it's very new. It's like less than a year old. I think we've had quite a bit of success early on because I'm somebody who's, like I said, been in the industry for a long time. So I'm well connected. I have a strong reputation as a good journalist. So for that reason, it's gotten a decent amount of traction among our target audiences really early on. And in the first phase of a business, especially news media, it's like my goal is let me rephrase that. In the long term, I want to be mostly audience revenue. I want to mostly have audience revenue through subscriptions or membership. But in the first phases of a business, especially in the news, you tend to rely more on sponsorships and also like foundation funding. So right now what I've done is I was able to raise, actually I got a lot of money recently. It was about like $80,000 total that I've been able to raise from different sources. So places like In Spirit Foundation, I was able to, my grandmother gave me money. I was also able to get funding from some unions as well. And also I got some funding from the city of Toronto as well as the federal government. And all of this money is like, there's no strings attached in that we have complete full editorial independence. So they don't tell us at all what to do with our journalism. And then I also raised and bootstrapped like $70,000 of my own money because I'm a sole proprietor. I was a media consultant. So I make a good living as a consultant for a lot of media outlets. So I ended up taking that money, investing it in my own business. So to answer your question briefly, I hope in the near future, in the next couple of years, I'll get to a point where it's sustainable and consistently bringing in revenue. But for now, it's about setting up the business and basically producing quality journalism to kind of prove out and validate my model, both my editorial model and also my business model. If you guys, if I may, I can explain to you what makes the Green Line unique, because we've gotten a lot of attention around the world for the way we do our journalism, if you're interested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. From what you have summarized, as investors, right? Especially angel investors, we love to hear people like family and friends who support you, like your grandparents or grandmom give you money. It means they trust you, right? She trusts you, and that is very important for us to put our investment or any kind of funding to you or your organization, right? That's number one. And secondly, you also have other companies that invest in you, and as well as other government funding. That's amazing. So my next question is, do you as your revenue will be more like customer driven, B2C, I would say, right? So yeah. Do you have some sort of software, and how far is that coming along? I'm more focusing on how far are you going to have that revenue besides the sponsorship?
I'm not sure what you mean. Can you explain to me what the question is again? Like what?
Yeah. Okay, sure. So you say you are going to have customers subscribe or membership to pay, right? Then do you have that kind of platform, right? Do you have that platform? Because that platform, I would say, mostly software related, right? Because, for example, LinkedIn, for example, if you want to subscribe, want to become a member, then we pay, right? Do you have the software support the membership? And
so I will talk about that briefly, but what I'm going to do is also talk about the actual editorial model, because I think that's what actually makes the Green Line unique. And I think it makes more sense to talk about that as well. But just to answer your question briefly, basically I've done a lot of consulting of media outlets over time, especially the ones that are B2C focused and member or subscription driven. And what always happens is that the first couple of years, they're getting foundation funding, they're getting sponsorship funding, because in order to build out a robust membership offering, you actually have to make sure that you have enough resources to do that. The thing about audience-driven revenue is that it's very high touch, in that you have to manage the relationships really closely. You have to understand your audience. You have to know how to serve them. You have to have really good customer support, basically. And so startups don't tend to have the resources to be able to do that. So my goal at some point is to be able to get to the point where I have diverse revenue streams from multiple sources, so that I can start building out the infrastructure for my membership model. The software that I'm currently using is a mix. So originally I was on Patreon, which is basically allows you kind of have members of the public pay basically monthly donations to your publication or to your product. There's also PayPal, which is kind of a great way to get one-time donations. So that's always a good option for folks who don't want to sign up for an account on Patreon. But I'm also currently using, outside of Patreon, because I'm transitioning away from Patreon, a platform called BB, which is actually a German membership platform that was created by news entrepreneurs as well. So they understand basically all my pain points, all my needs. So that's something that's really great right now that I'm using, that people can just sign up for an account and then just become a member of the Green Line. But I actually want to just quickly talk about my journalism model, because that's the most important element of the Green Line. So the Green Line has actually gotten attention around the world. We've been covered by the Canadian press. I've spoken at conferences, journalism conferences around the world, including in Italy and, for example, Austin, Texas, about this model. So the Green Line's model is this. In a given month, we basically look at one systemic problem facing Toronto. So, for example, maybe it's COVID, when COVID reentry, when the mandates fell off, or maybe it's housing affordability, maybe it's mental health. And then we produce 4 pieces across 4 weeks in a given month. So in the first week, we publish an explainer that unpacks the problem. week 2, we publish a long form piece of journalism that reports on solutions to the problem. Week 3, we host an event where we bring together community members to discuss solutions to the problem. So basically, it's like generating solutions from in a grassroots way from the community members so they can take action on those solutions. And then finally, in week 4, we publish an article that crowdsources those solutions that were from the event so the community members can take action on them in the way that they see fit, but also that all the solutions that we generated will inform our ongoing editorial coverage. So the reason why this is important, and I'll say this really quickly, is because typically in a standard newsroom, it's very top down. You have a top editor who's like, hey, you guys have to do this story, go run with it. This is what I want you to do. But the way we approach the news is different. It's more bottom up. So we're basically asking people, members of the public and community members, what they care about and what's going on in their neighborhoods so that we get ideas for stories that we can cover. So that we're actually covering what matters to the general public, if that makes sense. I hope that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's kind of like investigative journalism.
Sorry, say that again?
Is this the investigative journalism?
Yeah, so there's parts of it. Yeah, that's a good question. There's different types of journalism. So we are moving towards doing more investigative work, but we mostly do long form features, which are just like long form pieces of journalism that dive deep into an issue. We also do short form journalism. So the thing is, we target Gen Zs and millennials who are young people, right? And so young people are often on social media and they're on Instagram and TikTok. So we actually create story formats that actually are tailored to Instagram. So it's very like visual. There's a lot of audio. There's a lot of video. So it's more dynamic and interesting for young people. And then we also produce a lot of like comedy. Actually, it's not journalism. We also produce comedy. We showcase what's going on behind the scenes in terms of how our team makes the journalism, because young people nowadays want to know, like, just basically they want to know the people behind the product. They want to understand who we are, what our character is like, if we're good people, if we are competent. So we kind of try to showcase all elements of what we do in addition to producing journalism that's both short form and long form.
So my question is about the definition of your media, because we have large media, medium, small media, we have national media, international, community media. So look at the green line. What's its positioning?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Canadian media ecosystem is very, I would say it's very, right now it's very centralized, which means it's like everybody knows each other. It's a small industry. Everybody's kind of connected. So I would consider my publication community focused media, but it's actually, it's not alternative. I actually think it's mainstream. And the reason is because the goal of the Green Line is to fill in gaps in coverage in underserved parts of the city. So, for example, I used to work at the Toronto Star. It's a great newspaper, but I'm sure you guys have both heard that the news industry is suffering in terms of it's like losing money. A lot of publications are losing resources. They don't have as much staff. So places like the Toronto Star don't have as much capacity or resources to cover all parts of the Toronto. They really just can focus on like big things like City Hall or major stories. So the Green Line I see as filling in those gaps. Like we're in places like Rexdale or Scarborough or Regent Park, places that are just like not, or even Willowdale, which is more affluent, but they're still not well served by existing media. We're going in those places and filling in gaps. So I would say that we're community focused media, but we're still mainstream because we're covering all the places that other other outlets aren't able to cover.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I will continue. So you mentioned that looks like you're cross-lapping with the metro media. You know, the metro media from the Toronto Star subsidiary, they do have like publication for different areas, like Scarborough, Richmond Hill. And when we look at, say, I live in your region and talk to even naturally in your region, they only have like 3-4 reporters covering Markham, Richmond Hill, and
exactly.
When you look at the mainstream media, your region is totally underserved. So,
exactly. You nailed it, Joseph. Exactly. Because you know how big those places are. Like Markham's an entire city. Like York Region's huge. Like 3, even 4 reporters is not enough to cover those areas. So you're exactly right. That's actually why we saw a business case for creating the Green Line. Because I was like, okay, like places like Scarborough used to get a lot more coverage. And now there's like barely any reporting about the entire area. And there's like 700,000 people there. So all those people are underserved. So I figured like this is a great business case to actually launch a publication that can fill in those gaps. So you're totally right about that. And young people are also underserved too. One thing that people don't know is that it seems like they're well served, but a lot of youth focused media is actually American. So the stuff that young people are reading are like Vice or BuzzFeed, but it's not really hyper-local coverage of Toronto, which is what we really need. Because there's a lot of research that shows that people who have access to local media are more likely to trust their neighbors, they're more likely to volunteer, and they're more likely to vote. So it's actually really important for our democracy that we actually have we're filling in those gaps basically.
But when you look at your business model, like you start with, like look at your lineup, your team, you got many people working for you. So from a business owner point of view, like that, people, staff means cost. The more people working in the application, your media, then there's more cost. And the other way you look around, say, how can we get enough sufficient revenue to fit those team members? One good example, like that's one media in Hong Kong is called Fatwire. They started with like 3 million Hong Kong dollars as the first round of funding. But 2 years later, they run out of the funding and they have to get the second round of fundraising. But
Exactly.
I think at the end, now it's not existing anymore. That means that the second round of funding gone, vanished, and the media has to close down. So
yes.
So sometimes, like as a journalism, as the media people, we have our goal, ambition, we have like ego, but on the other end, we have to look at the reality. Just let you know, TorontoTV running for 20 years. So the reason we still keep running, because we keep our costs down as minimum as possible, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Joseph. And also for the viewers who don't know, Joseph gave me one of my first opportunities when I was just a kid. It was like when I was still a teenager, and I got to host the TorontoTV segment. So it's really cool to be talking to you guys.
Very good.
Thank you. Also, you look the same, Joseph. You haven't aged at all. You look not even a day. So you look very good. But I agree with you. You're totally right. Like, there's a lot of news businesses that are struggling, and I'm really impressed with the fact that you have been able to keep TorontoTV around for 2 decades, because it's not easy running the business. Like, even now, the way I'm able to keep the publication afloat is because I'm very smart about the way I manage like my money. So for example, there's a couple ways I'm doing it. And I'd like to share that with you. So we actually have a partnership with City News Toronto, and I'm actually in their newsroom right now. I'm actually in their voicing booth. And that allows me, because of that partnership, I'm able to have 2 part-time staff who are my producers, who can support me on not only the City News stuff, but also like the Green Line work. So that partnerships are a great way to basically keep myself afloat, especially with like major media outlets like City News, because they obviously have a lot of money, because their parent company is Rogers, which is like a very massive telecom company in Canada. The other way I'm doing it is because I teach at a lot of journalism schools like TMU, which is formerly known as Ryerson, and Centennial College. So I end up getting a lot of great, very talented young people who are still living at home. They can take on internships for free, or maybe they can take on like fellowships or opportunities at a lower cost. So I'm able to then like ethically be able to hire them without compromising their living, because they also have to be able to make a living. The other thing I do is like I pay partially, like for my fellowships, which are basically like internships, I pay half monetary compensation, but I also pay half in-kind compensation. And what I mean by in-kind compensation is that I'm a full-time, like I do a lot of media consulting. So I charge like a decent amount of money per hour to give that consultation. So I offer that to my team as partial compensation. So if they ever need things like helping edit their resumes or edit their graduate school applications, I can do that in exchange. So that's kind of how I've been able to keep costs down.
Amazing. That's amazing. So that's amazing how you are able to, keep the operation cost low and then keep it running. And for my next question is, how do you see this coming along in the next maybe year or 3 years or even 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question, Linda. So I have really big ambitions for the Green Line. And part of the reason why I partner with City News Toronto is because, as you guys know, they have outposts in like Vancouver and Montreal. So if I ever want to scale up the Green Line and create a similar publication for those major Canadian cities, there's already an existing model for it. And Toronto's definitely not the only city or place in Canada that has a lot of underserved communities. So I know I'm just positive that both Vancouver and Montreal have that. So that's like one kind of down the line, maybe in 5+ years time. That's like my ambition to expand. For the time being, though, I just want to get to a point of sustainability. That's always like Joseph said, that's like a big part of getting like feeling like you're successful as a business. Right now, actually this year I pretty much broke even, which I'm quite happy about, especially for the first year of business. But at this point now, I really am focused on like getting enough money to be able to produce enough journalism that basically expands our reach and our audience growth. And that way I'll be able to get more funding from like investors or partners. But on top of that, I'm hoping that more Torontonians will learn about the Green Line, so they'll start donating and contributing and becoming members. So that's like kind of the short-term goal. It's just like expanding the amount of coverage, building out the top of the funnel, basically increasing the marketing, and then down the line, hopefully expanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
The Chinese community actually there are many rich people in Chinese community. On the other hand, that you may have to get outreach to them so that you may get support from the community. That's one thing. Yeah. The other thing is that, I mean, you may think about like try to run maybe annual fundraising event, maybe fundraising dinner. Not only for the money, but also let the public know what you have been doing, you have done, you know. Yeah. So I know you, then I look for the Green Line website, but Linda doesn't know this. I introduce you to Linda, so that Linda starts to notice you right now. So the point is that like even I met like the artist group before, and they do get some funding from Trillium Foundation. And the funding goes to, they can allow, I think they got $50,000 to hire a full-time marketing people to help them market the organizations, so that you may have more time to focus on your like the management, the content generations, right? Because entrepreneur does everything, but we only have 24 hours. So that is how do we schedule that? So you can try to think about like say outreach more, connect to more people, okay? So that you may, sometimes you don't know where the support comes from, right? But you don't get the words out, people doesn't know you.
Yeah, totally. It's still early days, but that's definitely good advice because, I mean, there's definitely like, you're right. There's people with means who are from the Chinese community who want to invest in a lot of different businesses, including media. So I should tap into that as well. Like, that's why I'm grateful to you guys for putting me on air, because that's like my network is mostly like other people who are young like me, who are about the same age as me. There's other people who are in the industry. But like it is tough trying to find investments. Like that's probably the most challenging aspect of this. So yeah, like my goal is to just basically market the Green Line because it's still very small and not a lot of people know about it at all. So that's like also part of the reason why I partner with City News, because they have a much bigger reach than we do. So, but that's that is good advice. Like that's definitely part of my intention.
Would you also consider to go into like angel investments, because you can call you a kind of a startup, innovated company, right? So we do look into projects like yours, but of course you have to pitch, have to present it in a way that, they think the money they put in, it's not going into, just not in the job, but it's going to develop somewhere, investment and return. But the second question is, are you willing to give up some of the shares? And you might have to. We're going to ask what's your valuation and how much share they're going to get out of it, right?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Linda, because I am definitely open to. I'm definitely open to angel investments. In fact, that's something that I was actively looking for because for me, the main thing that I want is to hire my right hand. Like I like the business side of journalism, even though I've mostly been on the editorial side. So I want to hire an editor-in-chief or an executive editor to handle like the content production for me. I'm not opposed to actually having people, take a stake in my company. Like I would still want to hold the majority stake, but I'm actually very much open to that. And I have had experience actually pitching because I've been part of a few accelerators where they teach you how to do an elevator pitch. I have a pitch deck. So like even yourself or anyone in your network, if you guys are interested in hearing me kind of pitch, I'm happy to do that. Because because I've been part of a few other startups, and you're right. Like there was like that whole process of like, just gauging whether the investment's worth it, like valuing the company, all those things. So I'm definitely open.
For sure. So
sorry, I went to Dragon Den before, but I failed to get anyone from them. Dragon's Den.
Oh, really? Did you go? Were you on the show?
No, I didn't have the chance. I went to like CBC in Toronto downtown to get the audition. And then at that time, I think I'm asking for $25,000. I didn't get it. So.
Oh man, but that's a good tip, Joseph. I didn't know that Dragon's Den accepts like media outlet pitches, because I might try to do that. That might be fun.
Anything. Yeah. But they're money minded. They say they want their return in a few years.
Yeah, that's
so
really like.
if you're interested, right, I believe we have an event coming up next week. I'll send the information to Joseph, and then we see. But we have monthly events, right? It's mostly at the Bayview Golf Club. So I'll share it with Joseph, and then see if you're interested to join us. I believe next time we're trying to have a Lunar New Year celebration there, even though we're going to do non-Chinese, but it's the culture, right? So
yeah. That sounds great. Yeah, I would love to. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, that'd be really cool. I also like golf. I'm not very good at it, but I like golfing. So I don't think there's any golfing though right now in the winter, right? So I guess it's just like a gathering. It's
golfing,
like
yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, great.
Last is share a success story. A software company developed by like Canadian couple, and they put their money in the business venture, and the last draw is that if they have to mortgage the houses, they will stop the business. And luckily they don't have to mortgage their houses for the business venture, and they sold their company I think also around 20 years, and they sold their company a year ago for $600 million.
Oh, wow.
So a big company. Yeah. So
that's
the
impressive.
owners become a millionaire, even including the executives. So that's a good story. It's a Hong Kong Asian company. Yeah. So
that's impressive.
But at the end of the day, know your bottom line. All right. Don't mortgage your house for the business.
Oh my. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Cause like, that's the thing that I always knew. Cause I was like, even some of my advisors and mentors are always like, make sure that you have like a limit to how much you're investing personally into the business, because it can keep adding up, and you want to make sure that you're spending other people's money, not your own. So that's like, I get a lot of advice from like, and I really value like, because I know you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. Like I try to get all the advice I can get, because I'm a first time entrepreneur. I'm still young. Like I think I know the industry and the business extremely well, because I've been in it for a long time, but it's the first time I'm getting my feet wet as like a business owner. And it's like a lot of different things that you have to manage and keep track of, but it's really exciting. It's like been a fun journey for me.
Good.
Great.
All right. So, nice talking to you. I know you have to go. So keep us updated, and then next time I see you, maybe you have a whole lot of big success. All right?
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Yeah, and thank you. It was so nice seeing you again, and so nice meeting you, Linda. And please send me that information. I'd love to attend. Okay.
For sure. Yep.
Bye.
Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.